Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Creative Tavern. My name is Christopher Lee. I'm a concept artist, been in the industry for about 10 years now, worked with companies such as Walt Disney Imaginary as well as Universal Studio Creative. And I'm here today with my buddy, Michael Welker. Say hello, Michael.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Welker. I'm a creative technologist and writer, and former creative producer from the theme park industry, which is where I got to meet and work with Chris on some really
Mhm.
exciting theme park projects. Um, but recently, Chris and I found ourselves in between projects, and actually, I might need to start changing that because it's not so recent anymore. We've been doing this for a while. But Chris and I decided we wanted to put our heads together and do a creative project of our own. And not only that, we wanted to share our creative journey with other creatively minded people or people who are just interested in the creative process and creative work and art and that sort of thing. So we started the Creative Tavern, and we started that by doing our own creative project, a video game, which neither of us had ever made or had ever made before. So we learned how to do that. That took us about 6 months, but we did it, and we finished Project Rail Shooter, which is available. You can play the game now if you're interested. Um, but in addition to that, we also wanted to make sure that the Creative Tavern was a place for other artists and creatively minded people to gather and share what they're working on. To tell you more about that, I'll get back to Chris.
Thank you, Michael. And yes, the Creative Tavern was created for everyone, because usually I say for creative people, but I want to make sure I include the people who are not creative but is interested in creative things. So if you are human and likes creative stuff, you are definitely welcome to come and join us to learn and share everything that you do. And on every Sunday, which is today, we take a look at some amazing artworks from you guys. And yeah, today is Sunday, and so if there's any drawings or works of creativities, we will take a look at it in the Discord. Yeah, so thank you so much, you guys, for being here and watching us. And Michael and I are always happy to have you guys here along. Be with us on this whole this journey of life and creativity, because creation is hard, and sometimes and just yesterday and today, I actually had Michael take a look at some of my artwork, and uh, there are some things that I can't see because I've been staring at it for like, I don't know, 2 months. And there's a lot of them, 78 cards, artwork. And Michael was kind enough to take time from his schedule and actually look at it and give me some of the feedback. And thank goodness for that, because there are some things that I did not see because I've been staring at it for so long. So yeah, having another pair of eye, having another person, to be here and help you along your journey, is very, very beneficial. So yeah, thank you so much, Michael.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Yeah, and fantastic work. They look awesome. Can't wait for you at home to be able to see them and check them out.
Yeah.
They're real cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. So tonight, we have something to talk to you guys about. Is that Michael and I have decided to, instead of doing two shows a week, we decided to mitigate down to one show a week. Is because currently we don't really have a project going on, and we don't want you guys to come and see nothing that's happening, because it's nice sometimes to watch us talk and everything, which is great, and I love that. And I told Michael's like, I actually don't mind that at all. But it'll be good for us to kind of get together on the side, because usually we meet every Wednesday and Sundays, but now we're thinking about just doing it on Sundays, right, Michael? And then reserving Wednesdays just for Michael and myself, just to chit chat about potential ideas and potential things that we can do. And so until then, we are just gonna meet up same time, same place. Is just every Sunday. Yeah. Michael, did I miss anything?
No, I don't think you missed anything. I think that's very well said. That's basically exactly what's going on. And part of the reasoning behind that is because when we originally started the Creative Tavern, Chris and I didn't change our schedule. We just kind of like molded the Creative Tavern schedule around what we were already doing before that, which was meeting basically every Wednesday and Sunday at the same time to do our design updates or to talk about uh, the, when we were in the blue sky phase of trying to figure out like what do we got to do. Um, and so when we started the Creative Tavern, we just said, well, why don't we just do every Wednesday and Sunday? We're already doing that. Like it'll flow
Yeah.
very nicely. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why we landed on that original schedule. So it made perfect sense while we were in the middle of a project for that to be the case. And now that we are not doing a project, we kind of had to step back and rethink. Like, okay, well, what makes sense here? And I think the other thing that I would say too is to piggyback on one of the points you made, Chris. We also kind of want to use this time slot now to lean into this idea of a virtual tavern
Hmm.
where people can really just kind of come in and hang out. Um, this is a way for us to like let you guys know that hey, you're welcome into the Discord, you're welcome into the Twitch stream. You can go on our YouTube channel. Um, but as far as Twitch is concerned, every Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, Chris and I are going to be in here, just kind of hanging out, talking,
Yep.
doing stuff. We may sometimes have curated content that we've prepared to share with you guys, but sometimes it might just be me and Chris talking about like, hey, did you see the latest House of the Dragon episode? Wow, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, for now, I think our streams are going to be a little bit more casual than they have been. But still, if you like the stuff that we have been working on before, you're probably going to be pretty engaged in the content that we have because we like that stuff and we like talking about that stuff. So I'm sure it'll come up a bunch.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, well, thank you for saying all that, Michael. And tonight, I believe you have something awesome that you are going to share, and it's based on a book that you've been reading, and that's
Ah,
really
yes.
motivated you to, talk about, to share with me and you guys. Because yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael brought it up, this book up, for quite some time now. Throughout all our conversations, he's been talking about this book. So, last on Wednesday, he said like, "Oh yeah, well, I'll probably, you know, uh, talk a little bit more about this, and because it'll be beneficial for myself as well as you guys." So yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for first of all reading, because a lot of us, including myself, don't read anymore, and that's why we need people like you to help us learn about stuff. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. So what I think we'll do is I'm gonna show you the book and I'll talk a little bit about it. And then I also there's like a yeah, I'll show you the book. We'll talk a little bit about that. And there's a like a whiteboard sketch I want to draw for you guys to kind of explain a thing that is like my way of synthesizing some of the information. Um, and that's not really in the book, but as a way that I understand it, and I think will actually be very helpful to uh, folks who have a creative bent in their personal or professional lives where they want to do creative things. This is a way to kind of like really, it's like a working model for understanding how to really leverage that, how to really make sure that you're on the right track.
Nice.
But first, let's talk a little bit about the book. So I'm going to share my screen. It's just a picture of the book so that way you guys can see it. Um, so here is the book. It's
Nice.
called So Good They Can't Ignore You, Why Skills Trump Passion in the Quest for Work You Love by Cal Newport. Um, at this point, it's kind of an older book. I think this book came out in like 2012, so it's a decade old.
Oh wow.
Um, and I'd heard about this book a couple times, but never got around to reading it. And um, as you may know, if you've been watching the channel for a while, I am developing my software developer skills, and part of that is involves iOS training. And there's a really famous, popular, and very high quality online iOS bootcamp by Dr. Angela Yu, and this is a book that she recommended.
Mm.
She, as part of her course, she does these little sort of breakout videos where instead of just being exclusively about like, all right, here's my screen, let's do some coding. She'll do videos where she's kind of sitting on her couch next to the window and talking about like it's really important that you don't forget to live and like have a social life and keep things in perspective and make goals and stay physically healthy, like things that are adjacent to learning programming but also important for making sure you making sure that the table that is your life doesn't have one huge tree trunk of a leg and then the other ones are all, very thin little sticks that break and then
Right.
the whole table gets lopsided. You,
Right.
you want balance and things. So she kind of has these little breakout sessions where she gives you a little pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of those, she talks about this book. And the cool thing about this book is if you're if you're looking at the cover and you're reading the title, you're getting like 40 to 60% of the information already. Because the idea is that this is a really powerful trait that you can have and you can develop for yourself, and that is to for whatever the thing is, if it's a skill or if it's your job, is to get so good at it that people can't ignore you. And this quote comes from, I think it's Steve Martin, um, who was
The actor?
interviewed. Yeah, yep.
Oh, okay. Nice.
He was interviewed once, and the interviewer was asking like, well, how'd you do it? Like, what's your advice for young folks or whatever? And he said the only thing that drove him was, not like trying to make connections or social networking or anything like that. It was just this. He was just driven to get so good at comedy that people would notice, that like nobody could, like that people would talk about it, that nobody would be able to not pay attention to him. And so that's what he did. And it, analogous to that, he also talks about learning to play the banjo,
Oh yeah.
which I guess
Yeah.
he's really good at, right?
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah.
And the way he approached that was he said, you know, if I just practice this for 40 years, by year 40, I'm probably going to be pretty good at it.
Mm.
And that's it. Like, and now he's quite, talented in that regard too. And so this whole book this was kind of like that interview with Steve Martin planted the seed in Cal Newport's mind to write this book. And Cal Newport, just so you know who this author is, because I'd heard the name and I know he's written several books now. He's got like, I think 6 or so books. He's kind of a prodigy himself. He wrote this book when he was graduating from college and preparing to, or like he was getting his PhD and getting ready to go become a professor of computer science at Georgetown University. But when he was an undergraduate in college, he he wrote like 4 books, already had like a literary agent, because he was writing
Wow.
books about like how to be a successful college kid, how to ace high school and do really good on your SATs, because he was very good at all that stuff, and also
Nice.
was he's a good writer. He's a very talented writer. His writing style is very accessible. Um, but anyway, so uh, I guess the way it works with like getting a PhD and like getting your PhD and then also getting jobs to go and work at universities as a professor, there's a sort of period of time where like at the beginning of the PhD you're working really hard, and it's very difficult and it's really time consuming, but then you kind of go over this hump and you're kind of waiting for reviews and you're waiting and you're doing interviews and you're waiting for other universities to get back to you on whether or not you got accepted into their program. And so there's kind of this lull where you're like hanging out, but you don't really have a whole lot to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
he used that time to write this book. And he
Nice.
was basically going around interviewing people about, people who are really good at their job and who are like really successful and passionate about their job, and trying to find out like what's the secret sauce, what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about who he is. And yeah, he's got a bunch of other books that are really good, but I highly, highly recommend this one. And not sponsored in any way. I don't know Cal Newport, and his publisher's not paying me to be here. Just a book that Dr. Angela Yu recommended. I checked out and was like, whoa, this
Nice.
is really cool.
Nice.
So yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the book at kind of a high level, just so you have a rough understanding of like where I'm coming from with the diagram that I'm going to draw for you. I made a bunch of notes and I haven't cleaned these up yet, so this may be a little bit rough. So please forgive me if I
No, all good.
bounce
All good.
around. But yeah, so the book's kind of organized around 4 rules, 4 guiding principles. I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to briefly explain what each one is, and then maybe go a little bit deeper into some of them, because I think of the 4 rules, the first 2 are really important and applicable to almost everybody. The third and fourth rules I think are more applicable the further down the road you get. Like if you can follow rule 1 and 2 successfully, eventually then rule 3 will become more important, and then eventually rule 4 will become more important. But
Mm-mm-mm.
as sort of like baby steps, rule 1 and 2 are the real ones we're going to focus on.
Cool.
So rule number 1, don't follow your passion.
What?
Controversial thing to say.
What do you mean? What?
I know.
What?
Stay tuned. We'll get back to that.
All right.
Rule number 2, be so good they can't ignore you. Title of the book.
Huh.
Rule number 2 could alternatively be titled The Importance of Skill. Rule number 3 is turn down a promotion. Or alternatively, the importance of control.
Oh.
And rule number 4, think small, act big. Or the importance of mission. So what do these mean? Let's start with rule number 1, the controversial one. Don't follow your passion. This is something that, if you're familiar with Mike Rowe, he is the guy who did Dirty Jobs on, is it Discovery Channel or National Geographic, something like that, where he would like go and find somebody whose profession was doing something real nasty, like, you know, a sewer maintenance engineer, or, you know, like, I don't know, like tar processing refinery cleaner, you know,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that was like, you're going to be going into a place that's like hot and gross and dirty and filthy and backbreaking work. And yeah. And it turns out like a lot of those people were really good at their jobs and really loved their jobs. And so Mike Rowe's thing was, he has a very similar saying that is, don't follow your passion, but always bring it with you. And Cal Newport in this book, his thing is that he wants to call bullshit on this idea that you need to, that in order to be successful in your career or to be like happy professionally, you need to pursue a pre-existing passion. That's what's going to lead to happiness. And the most important part of that phrase is pre-existing passion. Because there are, for most people, the thing, like if you ask somebody like, what are you passionate about? Like, what are the things that you like? Most of the stuff that'll get, you know, label, or most of the things that they would list, not necessarily things that you can turn into a job. You know, your passion might be snowboarding in Colorado. Unless you're going to be a professional snowboarder or like a snowboard instructor or like, I don't know, mountain rescue or something, there's a pretty limited window of professions that you can pursue with that.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's not a valid hobby. That doesn't mean that it's not something that you shouldn't be passionate about. It just means that that your passion is not necessarily a pre-existing passion that you have is not necessarily a really good compass to guide you on a career path. So what do you do instead? And actually, let me read my little note here about rule number 1. Pursuing a job career calling a pre-existing passion will not lead to a happy, fulfilling, meaningful professional life. The falsehood is that you have to figure out your true calling and then find a job to match. That's not the way it works. So like, yeah, I got to find my calling and then I got to find the job that's a perfect match to that. That is misguided advice. Like, for some people, maybe that will work out. For the vast majority of people, that's not going to work out. And the pantheon of career histories are littered with the corpses of unfortunate careers that went that way, where people tried a thing and didn't quite work out. And I'll have a few examples to tell you as we go. But okay, so shit, don't follow your passion. That's not going to actually lead to career success and happiness. So what will? Rule number 2. Basically, my note here is be really fucking good at something. And if you do that, it will lead to a happy, fulfilling, meaningful professional life. And the reason for that is because humans feel really good when we are competent at something. When we are there's a like a core function in our wiring that makes us want to contribute to the community, to the tribe, to feel valuable to others. If we don't feel that, we can have a lot of psychological problems, because it's just hardwired into us to want to be useful. And part of our feeling of safety and security is in being useful to others.
Hmm.
If we know others are dependent on us and they value us and we are contributing members, um, there's a little part of our brain that's like, all right, we're doing okay. You know, these people like us and they need us and we're a valuable member. Our status in the tribe, which we need for survival, because human beings are social animals that cannot survive
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
That part of our brain goes, okay, that all looks good. I'm gonna take a nap now, and then it goes to sleep. But if it wakes up and we are not feeling like we are valuable members of society, if we feel like we do not have value to offer other people, if we do not feel competent, that little guard wakes up and starts sounding the alarm and going nuts. And that's one of the reasons why it's so uncomfortable to feel incompetent. When you do something and you're not good at it, it sucks and it doesn't
Yeah.
feel good. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why.
Yeah,
However,
I remember when I was in, working at Disney is like when I first joined the team, I wanted to make a really good impression to, you know, all my all the people on, on the team, because it's like,
yeah,
yes, I'm here, but I kind of have to kind of prove myself to everyone that, there's a reason why, Scott hired me. And at first it was hard because no one actually trusts or knew what I did. And hell, I didn't even know what I can bring to the table. And then so every single day up until I knew exactly what I needed to do or find my place in the team, I struggled. I was like, I don't know what I can contribute to this project. And, the leadership was trying to figure out a place to put me, whether it's on, Tron or Buzz or something, and and later on, they put me on Buzz, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Chris is perfect for this." And then when that happened, then I was like, "Oh, I have a sense of purpose, and I am finally contributing to this team, and everyone trusts me to do a good job." And in the end, I did a good job, and it was very, very fulfilling. So I know exactly how that feels and what you're talking about. Yeah, for
there you
real.
go. Yeah, yep, good share, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I have a similar experience getting into the theme park industry because I started, as a coordinator, having no experience in the theme park industry at all, and just feeling like, well, how do I help you guys?
Yeah.
Um, and then, by the time I got onto like, actually, the Super Nintendo World project is probably even better because when I started there, I didn't know anything about the project and I was
Mm.
still a coordinator. But I stayed on that project long enough that as new people came on and people who were working on it left, and I got promoted into the producer position. By the end, like I was just this fountain of knowledge and experience about the project. I knew who would,
Yeah.
who you should talk to about this. Like, oh yeah, this is why that particular element is the way it is because we had this meeting 2 years ago, and there was an armature that wouldn't fit in there, and blah 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 blah. And that made me feel great. That made me feel like a really valuable member of the team, and that created this passion in me for that project and for that job. Um,
Yeah.
and so, that's basically what rule number 2 is. It's all about um, building what he calls rare and valuable skills. You need to figure out which skills you need to develop because depending on the industry that you're in or the workplace that you're in or the role that you have, certain skills are going to be really important and others not so much. Um, and the rare and valuable skills are rare and valuable because they're really hard to get, they're really hard to attain. And that's the rare part of it. The valuable is if you can do that, it provides a tremendous amount of value to whoever needs it, to the employer, to
Hmm.
the customer, to the client, to your colleagues. Um, so what you want to do is in your work, develop rare and valuable skills and push really hard. And obviously, the way to do that, um, this may be old hat at this point. Probably a pretty a newer idea 10 years ago when this book came out, but it's the idea of deliberate practice, which we've all heard about, a million times at this point. which is 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Um, and there's a really good video by Veritasium about deliberate practice and like what is necessary for you to actually grow, because it's not just 10,000 hours. If let's take Overwatch for example. If you play Overwatch for 10,000 hours, you're going to get pretty good. But
Mm.
what's going to happen if you're just playing the game is your skill level is going to kind of go like this, and then it's going to like start to level off, and then it's going to just flatline. And the reason for that is because that's not deliberate practice. That's just practice. That's like getting in there and having fun with the game, which is totally fine. But
Yeah.
if you want to get better at the game, you have to do things that make you uncomfortable. Going to that place of incompetence again.
Yeah.
You have to push yourself to try things that you're not good at, rather than playing the game being like, oh, I'm really good with Reinhardt, and I line up my shatters all the time, and I'm really good at using my shield. I have a personal. I'm telling a personal story about this. I got really good with Reinhardt, and that was
Yes,
my thing, and I
you
was
are.
bad with DPS. Um, and it's
Ah,
particularly Hanzo. Hanzo is notoriously difficult to use because he shoots a bow and arrow. He's very slow fire rate. It's a projectile, which means you need to lead your shots. Hanzo is really hard to use and really impressive when you see somebody who's good with Hanzo.
yeah.
Um, and I got excited about that. I was like, oh man, I want to be a good Hanzo. He's
Uh,
such a cool character, and I love the bow and arrow, and man, that would be great. And so I started playing Hanzo, and I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn to play games, and people would be yelling at me like, "Get off, Hanzo! You're terrible!" Da, da, da. But I just kept and it's frustrating, when you play a whole game, like go
yeah.
an entire match without hitting anything, or like maybe get one body shot by accident
Yeah.
because the guy was right up in your face and you're just just blind firing. But I did that, and then I would do these training routines where I went on to like the custom games and found these like aim trainers that people had
Oh,
created,
cool. Nice.
and I would drill with Hanzo and do these really difficult training exercises. Like one of the ones that I did that was brutal. They created an AI Pharah with an AI Mercy, and they were
Oh,
flying in the air,
jeez.
and the Mercy's pocketing the Pharah,
Oh, God.
like healing her,
Yeah.
and I'm playing Hanzo trying to shoot the Pharah out of the sky while she's getting healed. Uh, that is really, really hard. But the way the human nervous system works is when you're trying to do something, it's going to adapt to try to help you do that because it gets just as frustrated as you about not being able to do it. And so the more exposure that you give yourself to this thing that you can't do, the more it's going to rally and change and adapt to help you get better at doing that thing. And doing something that hard as Hanzo will get you really, really good at Hanzo.
Mm.
And I don't want to toot my own horn, but Chris
Yeah,
can
you're
speak
good.
to.
Yeah, you're good
There you
with
go.
Hanzo. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the best Hanzo player in the world, but
Better
compared to
better better than me, man. I can't hit the side of whatever the hell you said, a barn you said? Yeah,
the broadside
I
of a
can't hit
barn.
I can't hit anything with Hanzo. That Hanzo is such a weirdo character, man. Why would anyone want to use him? He shoots so
Oh, he's
slow
so
and
cool.
oh,
He's it's so peaceful to play Hanzo for me. Um, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing is like, it's important. It's more important instead of comparing yourself to like other people to compare where you are now with where you were then. So comparing myself to where I was with Hanzo before, I am more like leaps and bounds better than I was. And I only
right.
got there because I did things that were really like your brain is like overheating, or my brain was overheating when I was playing those training, modes, and I'm trying to hit that Pharah, and it's like, miss, 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 body shot, miss, so then she
Yeah.
gets full health back again,
Yeah.
miss, miss, but every once in a while, headshot, oh my god, and then
Yeah.
you get this like, even just saying that, I'm remembering that and getting this like rush of adrenaline and dopamine and feeling good about like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I got her that one time.
Were you
Um,
trying to hit Mercy or Farah?
I practice both. Um, because you can turn the Mercy off or on. So I started with just the Pharah trying to hit
Uh-huh.
her, which is hard enough, and
Yeah.
then I turn the mercy on, because what that means is like if you don't have the mercy there, you can get a couple of body shots on the fair, and eventually her health depletes and she'll die. But if the mercy's there, you have to either get
She'll
a
never
headshot
die.
to kill her instantly, or you
Yeah.
have to get like repeated body shots on each successive fire. Because if you
Yeah.
miss once, that's enough time for her to get all her health back.
Yeah.
So it was a way, really that, and I use that as like an extreme example. Like this was like the pinnacle of my deliberate practice training as Hanzo. Um, in order to illustrate the point that you need to get to a place where the thing that you're trying to do is uncomfortable. And ideally, you don't want to go like super extreme. You want to push yourself to like just above your current skill level into that uncomfortable space. And then when your skill, adapts and improves, then you do the same thing. Practice in a place that's just beyond your comfort zone until your skill rises, and then you just keep doing that. You don't want to do this number. Like, I'm going to try to do this thing that even world-class professionals can't do. Um, that will make you better. If you just keep doing that, it will pull this up, but maybe not optimally because you're going to be so frustrated and it's going to be so difficult. Um, but it does act there's like a rubber band effect. Like it will really pull those skills up,
Right.
but you're going to have to endure some just brutal
Yeah.
nervous system frustration.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a couple of other factors that are involved in deliberate practice, not just doing something that is difficult and uncomfortable, but you also have to be operating in an environment where it's a non-random environment, meaning when you provide a certain set of inputs, you get a consistent output. So in Overwatch again, when you hold the left mouse button to knock an arrow with Hanzo and you aim at a specific spot and you let the arrow go, it'll travel and hit that spot. It doesn't just randomly shoot out of the side of the the bow. It doesn't just sometimes you just don't have any more arrows. You don't just explode randomly. There are rules that have consistent, predictable outputs given inputs. Some environments are actually random and in those environments you can't learn and grow. You can't develop skills, which is one of the things that makes video games so appealing and real life frustrating sometimes, is because real life is full of all kinds of random chaos.
Sure.
Um, whereas in video games, it's programmed to operate in a very specific way in that world, and so that feels good because you don't feel like you're getting cheated ever. Um, so anyway, there's that, and the final thing there is like feedback. You need the more immediate the feedback you can get, the faster your adaptation and skill increase can be. For example, if you are, again, we'll use the Hanzo example, you shoot an arrow within a second, did it hit the target or not? If it didn't, negative feedback. If it did, positive feedback, but you get it immediately. And that means like in a single hour, you can fire hundreds of thousands of arrows. You're getting feedback constantly. You're going to be able to improve that skill pretty quickly. But if you're doing something like, you know, writing a book that takes a decade and then you publish the book and then get feedback on it, that's a really long lead time between when you did the thing. Like, like you can only get feedback in that case. Let's say you live to be 80 and you started writing a book when you came out of the womb. You're only going to get feedback 8 times. That's not enough for you to like really grow and improve. So deliberate practice is the key. And there are different things you can do to get access to it. Model, look at other role models, the way other people perfect their skill. Mentors, coaches. You know, take it. There are some things you can do, even like where you can just look at yourself, look at your own performance. If you're, getting into weightlifting or bodybuilding, you want to do exercise properly. Having proper form is really important. Get your little, smartphone, record video of yourself doing push-ups or pull-ups or whatever. Look at the video and see like, oh, actually, I'm arching my back in a way that I shouldn't be right there. Like, okay, mental note, next time I do it, I'm gonna not arch my back that way. that's feedback that you can just give to yourself. But if you don't take the time to do that, and that's kind of a pain in the ass to do that. But if you don't do that, your skills will plateau and they
Yeah.
won't increase. Um, you can get a whole lot of mileage at the beginning, as if you're totally untrained at whatever it is you're doing, just doing the thing, even if you're bumbling your way around, you're going to be making a lot of progress. But at some point, you're going to have built a routine and built a certain level of comfort where you can just keep doing that. And there's a temptation to keep doing that because what got you to that point is a skill level that got you positive feedback. So if you do a thing, like let's say, you're really good at drawing bunny rabbits, and every time you draw a bunny rabbit, people go, "Oh my God, it's so cute! Like, oh, that's amazing." That feels good to get that validation, that feedback. So like, hey, I'm just gonna draw bunny rabbits, because every time I try to draw a cat, everybody's like, "Ooh, that's
Yeah.
not a very good-looking cat."
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back to the bunny rabbits.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get better as an artist if you just draw the bunny rabbits. You
Yep.
gotta also
Yep.
draw the cats,
Yep.
and then when you get good at cats, then draw something else. Constantly be pushing yourself and be willing to look like an idiot. Really is what deliberate practice is all about. And so his whole thing is that if you do that, basically what you're building up is something that he refers to as career capital, which we'll talk a lot more about when we get to my infographic. But that's rule number 2. It's so good that they can't ignore you. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Any thoughts
Okay.
or questions, Chris?
Yeah. God, the deliberate practice. I mean, going back to the whole Buzz project when I was at Disney, that was something that I needed to to learn how to do because there was essentially there was one way we decided to do things and we didn't have enough money to do it that way, so we decided to do this another way. And to do it that way, I had to learn how to do this thing called blacklight painting, and it was never been done before. I mean, sure, one or two people knows how to do it, but I kind of got thrown into the deep end of the pool. Like, all right, here, figure it out, because we need to make it work, Chris. So this is the method. You got to learn how to do it. And I had no idea how to do it. And then, man, and keep in mind these every time I make a test print to figure out if
Mm-hmm.
I did it right or not, it costs the projects like hundreds and hundreds of dollars to do these prints. So every single time I do prints, there's always like a lot of pressure. And then so that pressure makes me want to get good. It's not just like, oh, maybe it'll work, maybe it'll work. No, every single time I upload a file, there's a huge stress on my back knowing that, boy, if this doesn't work out, then I'm costing the project a lot of money. And so yeah, that the whole deliberate practice thing made me really, really have the obligation and stress. I'll keep saying it, stress, because it was very, very stressful. Every single like print that we do, a test mock-up costs like tens of thousands of dollars in order to set up, because it's not just a print. You have to put this print and attach it to Dibond, and then put
Mm,
structures on it, and then have like 100 people take a look at it to see if the concept works or not. And thank God, finally at the last moment, I finally a light bulb came on and like, oh, okay, this is how I need to do it. Because blacklight printing at that time, it was you don't print, you don't pick blue and it'll print out blue. If you want blue, you have to pick out aqua in order to get blue, and if you
oh,
want
interesting.
green, you need to pick uh, a type of green, because you can't just go straight up like this is exactly what I want. No, you got to like color adjust, and it was such a pain in the butt at the time. And every single print, it was very, very scary. And then so like you, I had to really focus the shit out of myself. It's just like, oh my God, I need to make sure this is works, because again, it costs a lot of money. And yeah, there was time, schedule, money, people. It's all depending on me. And then so I was just like, oh God, there's a lot of pressure.
So
Yeah,
much pressure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that deliberate practice. Yeah, you can't just do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hence the deliberate part of that.
Yeah.
statement. It's like you really got to. You can't just show up and shoot some hoops. You gotta shoot some 3 pointers, and you gotta learn how to do a layup, and you have
Yeah.
to you know get your dribble game up. So yeah, but basically that's rule number two. It's So rule number one, don't follow your passion. Rule number two, develop your passion by getting by developing rare and valuable skills that will make you competent and feel and confident in the work that you do, which you can then become passionate about. As it's sort of like this emergent property, this emergent phenomenon of getting really good at something. You can become passionate about it. That doesn't mean that you love the thing,
Mm.
but it does mean that you're passionate about your ability to perform the work in a way that's valuable to other people. Kind of like in your case, Chris, with the blacklight prints. I mean, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, so feel free to jump all over me if I'm getting this wrong. But one of the things that I saw, at least personally, was that work that you did, learning how to basically become to develop the rare and valuable skills of knowing how blacklight printing works was a godsend for the next project when we were working in Japan, and we were like, nobody knew how to solve this problem with this blacklight print, and suddenly you came on board, and you're like, oh yeah, I got a lot of experience with this. Like, here's what we need to do, and you got to do this, and here's how we're going to do the test prints. And something happened that I'd never seen before. Like, some of the vendors that we work with, very talented folks, but very tough too. Like man, you really need to show up. Uh, that person's real hard to impress, and you impressed some of those people. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So
Nice.
I would assume that there's at least some part of your blacklight print skill where there is a little bit of confidence and competence and passion and being able to like help add value to people. But if I'm totally off base there, don't hold back. Tell me I'm full of
Yeah,
shit, and that you hate blacklight prints.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right in saying that. I was good at it, but the question is, do I love doing it? Like, again, when you guys ask me to do that, I'm just like, ah, shit, here we go again. It's just that stress. But
Yeah.
because
Uh-huh.
it's all experience. Once you have experience, then you have confidence, and when you have confidence, then you could, keep doing it and not be afraid,
Hmm.
right? And
Sure.
so that's what happened for me. And yeah, like I just basically showed up and did what I needed to do in order to get the job done. Do I love it? Absolutely not. It's just something that it's like, oh my God, I have to do this again. Oh, but it's a job, damn it. It's like you
Sure.
get the work done, you don't complain, you just figure out what you need to do, and get make people happy with what the end results are. And yeah, that's what my goal was. Again, do I love it? Nuh-uh. But can I do it? Yeah, because I have experience and I practice my ass off.
Yeah. And I guess, and maybe that's the factor there, is that, like, I guess, like in that case, you don't love the thing, so let's just get passion completely off the table. But it wasn't passion that got you to this point where you're like one of the best in the industry at that, and with like the only resource available to the team. Passion didn't get you there. Rule number two got you there, being so
Mm-hmm.
good that we couldn't
Yeah,
ignore you,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and that through deliberate practice. So yeah, that's interesting.
yeah. And I'm very grateful for the pressure, if you will, because there has
Mm,
been times where I'm like, life isn't worth living. Why am I doing this? Oh God, this is too hard. I don't want to, that kind of
yeah,
that kind of
I want to stop.
exactly that kind of phase in your growth, right? It's like, oh, why am I doing this? What is this all for? What if I fail my team? What if this whole blacklight thing doesn't work out? All this doubt and you know scary shit that's going through my head. I think we all kind of need to go through that in order to get better at growth, right? Like you said, if you just play Hanzo casually, you don't, you won't get good. But because you trained yourself, aiming at Farah and mercy, that's how you get good. And for me, it's like putting me under the fire and banging me like a sword and a hammer or whatever, beating the
Mhm.
shit out of me. Then I got good, and boy, does it feel good? Absolutely not. Is it necessary? Probably, in order to get as good as I am today with the blacklight printing. Yeah, and again, do I love it? Absolutely not. But can I do it? Yes, I can, because it's just banged into me. It's like, pounded into me, and yeah, I definitely, I'm very thankful for that. But it's hard. It's not easy. Not easy whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, and that all kind of leads into rule number three, which is this, turn down a promotion or the importance of control. And this idea is that like, so my notes are, you need to be the one who controls what you do and how you do it. You need control over your workday and work in general. You need autonomy. You can only like when you get so good they can't ignore you, when your skills are rare and valuable, you have a lot of leverage. You can command a higher salary. You can have your pick of job offers. You can have your pick of creative projects or people who want to work with you or people that you want to employ. If you're running a business that has a whole like really great projects and really great people working on the team, and everybody wants to be a part of it, like balls in your court. Like you have your pick of the litter. And so that's kind of what rule number three is about. And the thing of like and this is part of the reason why I say rule number three is a little bit further down the road, because if you're just getting started, like that's not even really going to be on your radar until you've had a couple of years under your belt of building deliberate practice. But once you do get there, then it gets kind of cool, because then you can start being a little choosy about what it is that you're doing, um, or how you want to operate your work life. One example I'll give you from the book, there is this woman who was like an all-star student, and then she went into tech. She got her computer science degree or whatever, and then went into the tech development world. And she was constantly doing deliberate practice, getting better and better at what she did, and she found a way to write a program that automated a bunch of stuff for her employer, and they were like, wow, this is amazing, this is saving us all this money, this is incredible. But she was the only one who really knew how to do it. After a couple of years, she basically said, hey, so I don't want to work full time and all these crazy hours anymore. I want to work 35 hours a week. Uh, so yeah, that's what I want to do. In fact, I think they actually were trying to offer her a promotion. They were like, "Hey, you're amazing. You're really valuable. We want to give you a promotion." She turned that down and gave that proposal instead. Like, no, I don't want that, but I want to work fewer hours. Um, and that frustrated the employer. But what could they do? They needed her.
Hmm.
She was too valuable for them to let go. So they gave her what she wanted, and she started working fewer hours and maintained all of her benefits and everything, which gave her more time to do things outside of work that she was interested in. Um, and the reason why that chapter or that rule is called turn down a promotion is because part of what gets scary for employers when you become that valuable is they start to lose control. They want to be able to control you and your contribution and how you operate in the company. And if they promote you into a position where they can dictate more of how you operate, um, then the control goes back into their hands. And there's also a lot of resistance that you'll get too from the outside. So one of the things that was crazy was, her friends and family were like, "What? You turned down the promotion to work fewer hours? You're nuts! Like, why would you do that?" Because that's not part of the plan. Like, that is you'll run into a lot of resistance there when you choose to use your rare and valuable skills to gain more control for yourself as opposed to ceding it to your employer or to your family or to these other agents in the environment. So that's kind of what rule number three is about. And then rule number four, which is think small, act big, or the importance of mission. This one is even further down the road than rule number three about like, so rule number one, don't follow your passion. Rule number two, build rare and valuable skills. Rule number 3, once you've built those rare and valuable skills, use it to create more control for yourself in your own professional life. And then rule number 4 is basically your mission statement. You're finding your like true life's work meaning. And the only way to really do that, he says, is basically there's this interesting phenomenon about like scientific discoveries, where if you go back and look at major scientific discoveries throughout time, you'll often see that the same discovery is discovered by multiple people at almost the same time. So like actually I can't even remember the scientists and the examples, but there's a couple where it's like, you know, in 1780 this guy wrote a paper that discovered this thing, and in 1779, just a year before, this other guy in a totally different part of the world, these guys had never met each other, but they worked in the same field, he also discovered basically the same thing, and then they published their work, and then the scientific community moved forward. So, and that happens over and over and over again. In some cases it's like a dozen people all figure something out at the same time. And it's like, that's weird. Why does that happen? And the hypothesis is that if you're a layperson and you're not very familiar with a particular field, you're not going to really make those big discoveries generally, because you don't know like what's going on. Like you don't have a full understanding of the field. But if you become a professional and you advance your skill all the way to the cutting edge of the industry, like you're right there with the your peers who are the best in the world, like everybody who's as good in this field as anybody in the world can possibly be, you're all right there on the cutting edge of the industry. And below, like on the side of the line that you're standing on, that you've walked up to the edge, the side that you're standing on, you know what's possible over here. But you can't see what's beyond that line until you get up to the line. And so when you look into the adjacent beyond, the adjacent possible, or whatever he calls it, that's the only time that you can actually go like, okay, here's what we know about this entire field. Here's like the complete scope of, because I'm at the very cutting edge of this field, so I know as much, if not more, than anybody in this field. With all of that said, what's the next step? What's the next little push of innovation that we can move towards? And if you have a field like astrophysics or something, and you have multiple people who are all peers at that cutting edge, looking over just beyond the horizon into like what is in the adjacent possible space, they're working with the same variables. They're able to see the same things, and that's why they tend to have this phenomenon of like multiple discovery, multiple simultaneous discovery of new innovations in science. And the point of all of that is just to say, it's not at least this is his argument, it's not super helpful to come up with your life's mission until you get there, because that's the only place where you can actually look into the beyond and see where you can move the industry or your particular profession in a way that is going to advance the industry or benefit the world or leave a legacy on, to leave a lasting legacy for you. So that's basically rule number 4. And in summary, rule number 1, don't follow your passion. It will not actually help you land the career of your dreams. Rule number 2, get so good that they can't ignore you. Build those rare and valuable skills that will lead to a very valuable career that you may or may not like, but you'll be good at it. And will afford you the control to either continue down that professional path or potentially, free up more time to do the things that you actually are passionate about. The trick there is, you need to find, well, actually we'll get into that in a minute. And finally, rule number 4 is once, you've let go, or you've disconnected passion from a very successful career, built those rare and valuable skills, gotten some control for yourself, pushed yourself all the way to the edge of your field and industry, and you've looked beyond to see what your mission is, like what you're actually going to do with this thing. Follow those 4 rules, and you'll actually have like a really badass career.
Nice.
Yeah. So in summary, that's so good they can't ignore you. I've got a lot more notes, but I don't really want to go too much further than that. So, what are your thoughts, Chris? What do you think?
Um, I remember a long time ago when I was still a student, not even a student at Art Center yet, when I was hanging out with my cousin at the time, Jeanette, and she received a phone call, and there was some. I obviously I couldn't hear what the other side of the phone conversation was. I only heard what my cousin said, and then she's like,
Hmm.
No, I'm not gonna accept it. It's not enough." And then she just hung up the phone. And I'm like, "What the hell was that all about, Jeanette?" And then she was like, "Oh yeah, the my client doesn't want to pay me my rate, and then so I don't want to, you know, work with him or her. I don't know who it was." And then I'm like, What is your rate?" And she's like, $50 an hour. And I'm just like, "Oh my God, your rate is $50 an hour, you know?" And then she's like, and then yeah, that's my standard. And I'm like, "Wow, so you turned out a job offer because they didn't, you know, adhere to your rate." And I thought that was very, very cool and very empowering for her to say no when someone offered her something, right? And to me, that was like, that showed me kind of like, because she's good, other people want her to be, you know, working for her, right? And in the same way today, you know, I've gotten a few job offers where I was I was able to say no as well, is because one, the company sucks, because I've heard I've without going into it, I know someone who wanted to quit as an art director, and then he didn't want to work there anymore, and then so that place contacted me, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we want you to fulfill this guy's job," and I'm like, yeah, sorry, I'm busy." But I wasn't. I just didn't want to work with that, you know, company. And
Wow.
yeah, so being able to say no and being able to choose uh where your destiny goes and where you want to be and who you want to work for is such a huge sense of, I'll say it, it's a sense of pride, but at the sense of at the same time it's a sense of you get a sense of control of your life and not being led around where you don't want to be. And yeah, I don't know how to take in everything that you said tonight, is because I'm actually at the stage where I'm kind of questioning myself again. It's like, what am I good at? What do I want to do? And I know for a fact that with the skill level that I have, with my passion of the skill, for example, character design, drawing sexy girls, right? We had this
Mm-hmm.
conversation. I don't feel I'm that good yet, and I want to be good. And so it's going to take me a lot of time and energy and frustration and pain and suffering in order to get to where I want to be, like some of the heroes that I look up to, you know, all the anime artists that is amazing, you know. And just by you saying that, you know, don't follow your passion because that might not make you money. And then so I'm just like, oh God, that's so true, because, you know, I'm just looking at, you know, all the amazing art on social media, and I'm just looking and
Oh
then
my
saying to
God, yeah.
myself, it's like, fuck me, man. I'm not even that good. I'm not a quarter as good as these, you know, youngins are. I'm old now, and they're like so good, so much ahead of me when I was their age. And so I'm just like, man. And so there's a lot of self-doubt, and there's a lot of am I so good that people can't ignore me? Maybe in the past, because, you know, that was dealing with the blacklight and, you know, the blacklight prints, but I'm not doing that anymore, so I got to think about something else that I want to do in my life, right? Because I'm still young, you know, I mean, I'm not young anymore, but I'm still young in the fact that I still have a lot of time left to figure out what I need to do, and I do have a lot of experience design wise, and I just got to figure out what I want to do in order to accomplish the next phase of my life. Is obviously I'm currently doing the tarot cards right now. It's kind of like an experiment thing. Am I really, really into tarot cards and, you know, fortune telling, reading? Not really. I'm just doing it because it's just something that I saw on Kickstarter, and it's like, oh, people are actually interested in getting these. And I'm an artist. I could design my own cards, you know, and boy, did it take a long time. And that was definitely an experience. And then after this, I don't know what I do next. You know, before that, I was doing enamel pin designs, and now I'm doing tarot cards. And now what's the next thing? I don't know. But I totally agree. Like I definitely need to find out and hone at what my abilities are and actually do something that I people can't ignore, you know, because everything that I'm doing on Twitch right now, it's tons of people are doing it, you know. So I got to think of
Mm,
a something that, you know, not a lot of people's doing. And it's very, very hard to find a niche like that. It's not easy.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really good points there. And uh, this diagram that I'm about to draw, I think will give us even more talking points about exactly what you were just mentioning, Chris. So without further ado,
Nice.
I'm gonna switch screens here to Rebel, and we'll look at that instead of this. So share. Uh, oh, wait, can I not share that screen? No, that's weird. Oh, wait a minute, did I? No. I guess. All right, we're gonna do it in Keynote.
All right, there you go.
Because Rebel is just not playing nice with Discord. Discord's like, I don't know what that is.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, that's fine. This will be a little bit easier anyway. You get to see my rare and valuable Keynote skills here.
Yeah. One of the best keynote people that I know personally know.
Thanks, Chris. Let me just improvise my setup real quick. I think yep, it's this one. Okay, great. Bam. And share screen into Keynote. Better text readability. Okay, you're looking at this blank screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna build this thing. And basically there are like two really important factors here. I think these are like the two pillars of understanding that, or like if you're building like a platform you want to stand on, these are the two most important things. The first one is financial capital. Didn't spell that right. Financial capital. And let's bold that. Put that over here. And the second one is career capital. So what are these? Financial capital, that's pretty straightforward. That's basically money. I'm going to put a little note over here. So this is like money. And then for like because I think it's helpful to look at this in terms of like a video game metaphor. You also think of this as like gold. In a lot of video games, that's the currency, right? You got gold.
Yeah.
And so career capital, this is basically the equivalent of like, XP, experience. This is your like level 1, 2, 3, and so on. Career capital being those skills that you're developing, right?
Yeah.
And so what the reason why these two are kind of like linked together, and I'm going to put a little border on these to make them pop a bit. And let's make that a little bit more subtle. These kind of give you that rule number 3, that control, where you're able to like do something that
Yep.
you want to do. So if you have financial capital, that lets you decide how you want to spend your life because you need finances to support yourself, or to sustain yourself.
Right.
When you think about things on this side of the equation, this is stuff, or this allows you to pay others for what you cannot do yourself and need slash want. So you can't do everything by yourself, but there's still gonna be things that you need or want, like I have no idea how to make an Apple Watch or an iPhone or a MacBook or a Bluetooth speaker, but I want that stuff. Like I you know I won't say that I need, depending on what you have to do, but there are things that you need and want that you need to pay other people for. That's where financial capital comes into play. You can certainly minimize how much of this you need by increasing the amount of stuff that you do yourself and minimizing the amount of dependency on other people. So you still need food and shelter. If you find a way to, if you learn how to farm and you learn how to build a shelter or a cabin in the woods and you want to go live off the land somewhere on your own, you can minimize the amount of financial capital you need to do your own thing. But otherwise, you know, you kind of need this part. Like this is what financial capital will gain for you is the ability to pay others for what you can't do yourself, but that you need and want. On the other side, career capital kind of does the opposite. Actually, let me just start over. Others pay you for what they cannot do, and most importantly, cannot do and need / want. And this part is really, really important, so I'm going to even underline it. Because nobody's going to pay you for something if they can do it themselves, or they don't need it or want it. And depending on how good you can do that thing, they'll be willing to pay more for it. You can get a cheap, piece of junk smartphone, but the manufacturer is not going to be able to charge nearly as much as somebody like Samsung or Apple or Google. And so that's kind of like how these two things are related. Financial capital and career capital give you some ability to control your environment. Actually, do I want to save this? I don't want to save this.
Yeah, please.
And these, well, yeah, okay. Let's save it to the desktop here. Career loop. There are a couple other factors at play here. So I'm gonna put this one down here in the middle. This is going to be your projects, your career, your job, things like that. And let's grab one of these. We're going to connect this and this like this. Whoops. And then let's put the arrow on that side. Nope, wrong side. Want it to go that way. And basically, so what this arrow is indicating is your career capital largely dictates the quality of the jobs, the career, and the projects that you get to work on. If you have a really high level of career capital, meaning you've got really rare and valuable skills, these get better. This is a direct input into the quality of your project, career, and job.
Right.
Similarly, your project, career, and job gets connected over here. The better your projects, your career, your job is, the more the financial capital you get compensated for. Which then, improves all of this other stuff over here. In addition to that, when you're sitting in this, so we kind of already talked about what you can do with the career capital, that kind of allows you to influence these sorts of things. There's a couple different things you can do with financial capital, one of which, if we go over here, is to just chill. If you got enough money to just that's Chris's favorite. Chris likes that one.
Yeah.
If you got enough money where you can do this thing down here, you can pay others for what you cannot do yourself. And if you can do that for the rest of your life, well, I mean, that's financial independence. That's, early retirement. You don't have to do anything. You can just hang out. You just go on vacation, into vacation mode if that's what you want to do. In addition to that, though, there are other things you can do. Your own personal creative projects or pursuits, actually. I'm just going to put pursuits because not all of those are necessarily projects, but you can do things that don't need to have any sort of financial benefit because it doesn't matter. You're already here. And in some way, the career capital will actually also influence that because, these personal creative pursuits could actually very well be influenced by your rare and valuable skills. But another thing that you can do with your financial capital, if you've got the time and or money, is you can spend that developing your skills. Instead of just hanging out. Whoops, duplicate, move this here. So financial capital will give you the ability to hire that coach, to take that, 3-month break to do a boot camp and learn a new thing. And those skills will directly translate into more career capital. And there's also a little bit of a sort of like feedback loop here as well, where these things also influence this. And basically what's happening here is this is sort of, and I'm going to make this a different color. This is giving you experience. This is giving you gold or money. This one is, whoops. This is also experience here. Whereas this over here, if you're going to chill, that's actually going to subtract gold.
Negative gold, yeah.
Same thing with this, potentially negative gold, but, maybe positive XP?
Yeah, because your personal creative pursuits can make you some money while you're playing Overwatch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe make a question mark money. And the reason I put the question mark there is because I consider these things to kind of be like the things that you're not really like down here in this little cycle, you're working hard. This is the deliberate practice area where you're doing things that are tough and not fun a lot of the time. This stuff up here is much more casual. This is the stuff that you want to do for fun, that you're not really banking on. Like up here, you're not trying to get so good that they can't ignore you. Here, when you're developing these skills and you're operating in this part of the equation, that is where you're trying to get so good that they can't ignore you, and that is uncomfortable and difficult. And I think that's basically it. That's kind of like the diagram. And what's like important to remember about this, I think, like there's this really cool example in the book, or there's two examples, because he's, as I mentioned, Cal Newport went and interviewed all these different people from all these different backgrounds, and not all of them have positive, happy ending stories. Some of them actually are not so great. I'll give you two different ones, and they're related to this idea of like rule number 3, rule number 2, getting so good they can't ignore you, and getting so good with those rare and valuable skills that you have some control, and making sure that you don't try to take control of something before you have those rare and valuable skills, because things can go awry. Here's the example, or here's the comparison between two different examples. There's this woman who is a like super high-ranking, very powerful like marketing vice president or executive or something like that, making a whole bunch of money, kicking ass at her job, but she hated it. She really didn't like it. She wanted to leave. So what she decided to do was to quit her job and open a yoga studio. She really liked yoga. That was her passion. This is the pre-existing passion fallacy that she kind of fell into. And so she quit her job, took a 2-month training course to get her yoga certification to become a certified instructor, opened her own studio, and began her yoga practice. And when Cal caught up with her a little bit later, or he might have been reading this in a magazine or an article or a news article or something, but somebody checked in with her again a little while later, like a year or two, a couple of years later, something like that, and she was completely broke and living on food stamps. And so before I analyze, that's story number 1. Story number 2 is about this couple who they went to a bank and they got a loan, and they decided to start their own like farming organization where they were going to buy up this plot of land, and they were going to put an orchard in there and various gardens and grow all these crops, and it's all going to be organic and locally sourced, and people in the community can come to them, and before at the beginning of the agricultural year, they can put in their order of like, okay, here's the produce that I want for the autumn harvest, here's the produce that I want for the spring yield or whatever. And then when that time of year comes, the harvest is completed, and then those people can come pick up the thing that they ordered. And that couple, business was extremely successful. So successful that they ended up having a wait list. They ended up having to turn people away because there's just so many people who wanted to participate. And so what's the difference? Like, why did the one group, the husband and wife had quit their previous jobs to go get a loan and start their business. The marketing executive did basically the same thing. What's the secret sauce? Why did one work and one didn't? And the difference is the career capital. When the marketing executive left and became a yoga instructor, she only had 2 months of training. 2 months is not nearly long enough to build the kind of career capital that makes you so good that they can't ignore you and that you can command a high salary from an employer or a high hourly rate from a client. Because, I mean, and just about anybody, if they have 2 months, can and are dedicated, can go get that certification and catch up to you. If you've been doing yoga and you've trained with yogis all over the world, in India and in other parts of Asia, and you've mastered the discipline and you've been doing it for 20 years, you're going to be able to like really command, and you're going to have so much control over your career and your profession and what you are providing to the world, because your expertise is so rare and valuable that you have the career capital necessary to leverage the control that you want to take. So if in that case, if that person who has all of that training decides to leave an employer and start their own yoga studio, probably going to be a much different story. In the
Right.
case of the farmers, when they left their jobs, the jobs that they left were farming jobs where they had been
Right.
working for other people doing agricultural things, and they'd been doing that for a decade. They'd been learning all the skills about how to be farmers.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when they went to the bank and said, "Hey, we'd like a loan to buy land. Here's our business plan." Like, sounds good. You guys know exactly what you're doing. This is a very sound investment for us. Uh, this has a very high chance for success. They had the career capital that could go with leveraging control. If you don't have the career capital and you try to take control of a situation and go and do something without first building the career capital,
Right.
that's when things are going to go sideways. So
Oh.
the idea here is you can do, if you want some control in your life to be able to do things, you have to have either financial capital or career capital, or a little bit of both. And you can use this kind of feedback loop to improve both of them. If you don't have a lot of financial capital and you don't have a lot of career capital and you're stuck in a job that's low pay, low skill, not great, that's the toughest place to be. And that's where I started.
Mm.
And the only way really out of that is to live below your means, to save up enough financial capital. Try your best to work hard at your job so that way you can kind of work on this little feedback loop here where you can use your job to get better and better at what it is you do, improve your rare and valuable skills within the organization or within your field. And as these things can kind of like grow bigger and bigger and bigger, the more that you do, then you have more power. Like the more financial capital you have, the more decisions you have to yourself where you can say like, okay, I have a lot of financial capital now. What am I going to do? Well, there's some really cool jobs I'd like to do, but they all require, me to go back to school or to get the certification or to spend, 2 years practicing a thing. I'm going to work towards that, build up enough financial capital where I can then take some time off to go build those skills, which will then give me career capital that I can then funnel into meaningful projects, career, or job. And then the nice byproduct of that is that generates more gold, and so you kind of like get this thing going here. The part of the danger is in trying to do one of these things, to
Yeah.
go into the chill mode. If you don't have enough gold, you're going to run out of money, and if you don't, it didn't also build skills, well then you're going to go all the way back down here to that low skill, low pay job. Similarly, if you decide like, this is the path that I would assume would be like the yoga studio thing, right? Not having enough, or having plenty of financial capital for a little while, but no career capital in the thing that you want to do with your life. You leave here, go try to do the yoga studio thing. That's costing gold and the possible experience and possible income don't materialize because there's not enough career capital. So then you run out of money and whoop, you go right back down here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this balance that you need to strike between knowing if you have enough financial capital that is just going to last you, then you don't really need to worry about career capital because this will just take you to the rest of your life. But if you don't have enough of this to last you forever, it's really important to build this thing, to invest here and here, at making your career, expanding your career capital box, because that directly feeds into your ability to generate more gold, which then gives you more control, which then,
Right.
it's this feedback loop.
Right.
So this is kind of like my synthesized understanding of what he's talking about in that book, coupled with my like long-term interest in and pursuit of financial freedom and financial independence.
Right.
So I've been talking for a while. What are your thoughts, Chris?
My question is, what the lady who pursued yoga, what was she doing before she left? What did you say it was marketing?
Yeah, she was some
Okay.
kind of marketing executive or something.
So I guess things would be different had she actually loved marketing, and instead of working for someone else, she would quit the job that she was doing and then starting her own marketing firm, and then that would become her financial capital, and then she would, as much as the more and more she does it, she'll get better and better and better, um, because she, very much like the farmers, she actually has, I want to say, years of experience doing marketing, which is kind of funny. I would assume if you had the power of marketing, you could actually get anything off the ground running. But I guess only for a short time, because getting your yoga certificate for only 2 months, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are much better than her. But because it's her passion, she wants to actually open up a studio. But doing that costs a lot of capital, because owning a studio, shit, rent is a lot of money. And had she done it, at home, or it probably would have been a little bit different. But anyways, but yeah, the smarter thing for her to do was probably open up another marketing firm slash school slash online course, or whatever the hell it is, because she has the experience of doing that, instead of, doing something that's like, wait, wholly not of her field, right? So that's very interesting. That's hmm,
Yeah, and in fact, yeah, you nailed it, Chris. There's another example that he uses in the book about this guy who is, I think, is an architect, and he's working for a firm, and he just works really hard. Gets actually, maybe it was design. It might have been like, oh yeah, I think he was an artist who wasn't crazy about like, I think it was like logo design or something, graphic design,
uh,
but that was a part of the department that was weak, and so he filled that niche and got better at it and better and better and better, and eventually became so good that they let him like run his own little like company within a company, where they were like, we're gonna have this sort of like branded subsidiary that operates inside the company, and you're gonna be running it because people are coming to us for your skill. So then he did that for a couple of years, and eventually got to the point where he was so good at it and so much career capital, he left and started his own firm doing that. And the sort of like rule of thumb, the shorthand to use for like whether or not it makes sense to like leave and go do another thing is to answer the question, are would other people be willing to pay me for this? If the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, pump the brakes. Either do something else that people will pay you for, or go get the skills that you need to be able to answer that question in the affirmative. Because if in the case of like the marketing executive, like you very aptly pointed out, if she was so good at marketing that people were willing to pay her for that, then yes, that would make sense. Go and start your own marketing
yeah,
firm.
yeah,
But if you say like, hey, would people be willing to pay you for yoga classes? Like, well, I've never really done it before. I'm not, I don't have any experience teaching. I don't have any experience doing yoga other than like I like it.
right.
Um, I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I really like this book is it's not a flowery like feel good like oh yeah you could do anything like
Right.
oh you're so awesome. It's
Yeah,
like tough love,
yeah,
like if people aren't going to pay you for this, tough shit, you got to eat. You got to,
Right.
keep a roof over your head. And sometimes that means doing something for a very, very long time that's difficult and frustrating and not glamorous.
Right.
But because of that, very few people do it, which means if you can slog through that and get to the other side and have this rare and valuable skill that nobody else could get because nobody could stick with it long enough to get through the bullshit and the pain and the suffering that it takes to get there, well, suddenly you've got this thing that nobody else has, and that all kinds of people are going to be willing to, you know, pay for it. And that's why, like, this this right hand side. That's why italicized and underlined and capitalized the need want piece of it. Is it doesn't matter how fucking good I get at playing Hanzo. There's going to be very few people who would pay me for that. Even if
Right.
I became the best Hanzo in the world, I could start a YouTube channel or maybe play in the Overwatch League or whatever. But that if the point, like, so there is a group of people that would pay for that, but that also has limitations.
It's so
Um,
small, that group of people that would pay you in order to, it's
right.
the only people I could think of is the Overwatch League, and it's only like what 100 people that they would pay in order to do that. Is
Right.
those kids that compete, right?
And with the Overwatch League, there's not as much, control there. Because if they shut down the league, well then I'm done.
Sure. Right.
And
Right.
if
Right.
yeah, so I mean, now we're kind of getting into like factors that are a little bit beyond the scope of the simple model. But yeah, the idea is you can't just get really good at something. You got to make sure that the thing you're getting good at is something that people are willing to pay you for, something that
Right.
people want or need.
Hmm.
And oftentimes that's not always glamorous. That's why, we talked about the micro dirty jobs thing. Doing garbage collection is, I bet, almost nobody's fantasy or dream
Hmm.
job, but it
Hmm.
needs to be done. Like, it's a
Yeah.
really important function in society, and from what I understand, like, garbage collection guys get paid quite a bit of money. Like, it's actually a pretty well-paying profession because
Hmm.
so few people do it.
Right.
Um, so so yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my spiel.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing this. I should definitely take a look at this book. It's been forever
It's
since I
cool.
read anything. Well,
Yeah.
from what you showed here, it's very enlightening. I'm just curious, like, what else did they talk about? I know you said she
Sure.
lives on food stamps and everything, but did she go back into design or not design, marketing,
To marketing.
Yeah, did
They
she get back?
I don't know. I mean, we could probably find out if we did some like research, but in the
Yeah.
book he doesn't return back to
Okay.
see like what happened with her.
Right. Right. Man, that
Um,
must have been like, to get back on to get on food stamps from when she had a lot of money and, a lot of capital, and I guess renting that
that
yoga
must have been
studio really
tough.
killed her.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I mean that was a pretty sad story. I thought I was like, "Oh wow, that's real
geez.
tough." But
Yeah.
especially to go because I think he mentioned that she was actually doing real good. Like she was pulling in like six figures or something like that, something more. Um, Here, I'm gonna change back to this. So just we've got, we're talking about that book again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and there's a whole bunch of other stories in there that are really cool, and I think part of like what makes having, and I mean a lot of examples in like every chapter, there's like two or three people that he's talking about. Oh, another one that was in there was there was this guy who became a television writer, um, and when he got to Hollywood, he just kind of like after he got out of college, he like up and moved to Hollywood. Didn't no, had no intention of being a writer. Didn't really have a passion for writing, um, but just knew he wanted to work in television, and kind of like got into that industry, and then dabbled around with a couple of different projects and helping people in different capacities, and realized that writing these things is like one of the most important um, factors. And another thing that Cal Newport talks about in the book is when you're building, when you're doing rule number 2, and you're getting so good they can't ignore you. He talks about choosing the skills you want to develop and being inside the industry or having like done your research will hopefully reveal that to you because in some industries, in some markets, there is a different strategy than in others. For example, in and that different strategy is basically you either pick one skill, the one skill that's the most important thing that sets aside that determines the outcome. And in other industries, it's like a multi-skill thing where it's like this particular industry requires people who have a little bit of knowledge over here and a little bit of knowledge over here and a little bit of knowledge over here, but at such an expert level and combined in this way that they're the only person who really understands how this complicated thing works. So, for example, on this side over here, the guy who became a television writer, he basically realized the only thing that matters at getting so good they can't ignore you is your writing skill. Nothing else matters. Like you can be an absolute a-hole to work with. People can just hate working with you. But if your scripts are better than anybody else, you're still going to get hired. You're still going to make a lot of money. So in that case, that was the one skill he needed to develop and get so good at that it was world class. Everything else he just let fall by the wayside. Compare that to another guy who was like a climate scientologist at or a climate science climate science scientist um, working at various universities and learning about energy. And as part of his like studies and his work for his mentor, he would travel to different parts of the world and meet with like different energy firms, and wrote a lot about science and the way like this particular energy sector works. And he did that for several years, kind of just doing each thing to the best of his abilities. And eventually, he found himself in this position where he was like the only person in the world who knew how these complicated energy pipelines worked. Like,
Uh-huh.
how does a country manage energy and climate and carbon footprint and all this stuff? And so he was able to like create a company that knew all of the different very complicated variables that he could manipulate and manage to allow companies to offset their carbon footprints, basically. And so then he made a shit ton of money doing that, and then also did a whole bunch of other things. But in his market, there wasn't one single skill that dictated who was the best. It was
Right.
this sort of like collection of different disparate pieces of knowledge. So that's another thing to like consider when you're getting so good they can't ignore you. Is like, is your thing is your market a one skill rules them all market, or is it a like a generalist amalgamation of like, hey, having a bunch of disparate skills that aren't that often connected in this unique way in a single person, making you so valuable because you're the only person in the world who knows how all these things talk to each other. Um, yeah, so that's just like another consideration in like getting so good that they can't ignore you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
I'm
yeah,
just
I
trying.
mean, I have.
I'm
Oh, go
trying
ahead.
to. I'm trying to apply it to myself as an artist, as a artist slash designer. It's like, do I
Mm,
just do I just need to worry about my Photoshop skills, or do I also because I know for a fact that in the whole theme park industry, it's not about what you can do, it's also about who you know, right? It's all about
mm,
building up that um,
and network.
Rolodex, yeah, network. Thank you, sorry, Rolodex. God, I'm still living in the 1990s. The network, better word. Yeah, it's not just about what you can do, it's also about who you work with. And fortunately or unfortunately for us, we can't be just assholes. We can't just say, "Oh, we're the best designers and therefore anyone's going to work with us." Cuz I know for a fact that if you're an asshole, I ain't going to hire you. I'm going to hire the second best because this person is so hard to deal with. So I know for us it's definitely we have to take the whole social aspect of it as well, not just the skill, because God, I don't want to work with someone for the next 5 years if he or she is a dick.
Yep.
So yeah, that's something that I didn't learn in school. It's about, connection, like social connections and getting networking. Networking is the right term. Yeah. But yeah, having the social skill for me definitely is a must because I'm gonna say there's probably a good hundreds, if not thousands of people who can do exactly what I do, but it's the people that I know who trust me, that would hire me without needing to look at my resume. I'm sure you could just be like, oh yeah, Chris, he has expertise in blacklight prints, hire him. And then because they trust you, therefore they would hire me. Very much like
Mm-hmm.
me going to Japan. It's like, oh yeah, Chris does color, which by the way, I I when I accepted that job to Japan, I was like, I guess I can do color, you know, and then I was like, I'll just figure it out, and it ends up, oh, I guess I can do it, it's pretty cool. And then not just color, but doing illustrations and other stuff, and then eventually freaking blacklight printing as well, because apparently I can't escape it. It's just following me everywhere I go. Because I had no
Apparently, a
idea I
very
was
valuable skill.
yeah, I had no idea I was gonna do that when I went to Japan. So yeah, with this for me as an artist, I think skill definitely is just the design, drawing, um, and for me, it's also just being able to adapt to the situation. For example, like remember a long time ago, I showed you like they gave me this rendering, like a 3D rendering. They're like, all right, we need you to draw like a bar here based on this perspective slash screenshot of what someone else did. And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
shit, if I'm gonna have to do this, it'll take me forever to plot the perspective and everything. But I was able to think logically and cleverly to figure out, oh, to do some research and find out there's a program out there that is able to set up a 3D camera where I can model in perspective, alongside the screenshot that they gave me. And then so thank God for that. And then so after I started using that, I was able to create the environment that they wanted. And so yeah, it's just for me, I think it's all about being able to learn your skill, being able to adapt, as well as to work alongside people. That's just something that I've picked up, and learned along the way in the 10 plus years that I've been, in this theme park design industry. Yeah, and to be honest, I'm, kind of out of it for a while. I've been trying to do my own thing, as doing enamel pins and tarot cards, and just trying to, you know, create my own empire. May I hope I don't end up like the yoga instructor. For me, I'm not like
Oh
renting.
no.
For me, I'm not renting out like a studio that'll bankrupt
Mm-hmm.
my shit, But I'm trying to figure out a way where I could work smartly and independently from people from hiring me, because at the end of the day, I want to be independent. I want the world to be my boss. I don't want a company to be my boss. I want to be able
Mm-hmm.
to, play Overwatch and earn a couple of dollars while playing Overwatch, not because of Twitch or anything, but because of, my pins and my tarot cards, my artwork, just things that can make money. Like I said, design once and then sell a million times.
Mm-hmm.
That is the goal. And the problem right now I'm having is obviously, marketing. I should talk to that lady who is, you know, maybe if she
I need
hire, if
work, Chris.
yeah, yeah, if I could
She's looking
hire
for new
her to,
clients.
I know if I could hire her to help me out in this whole digital social media age, then that'd be great. Uh, that would solve half of my problem, because I know for a fact that it's not just about skill, it's not about drawing, it's about letting others see your skill, because again, there's thousands of me out there in a sea of artists. I'm just trying to, swim in the vast ocean of all these people who are trying to stand out, especially in the social media age. And like you said, there are people out there who are who you can't ignore, like, Ross Draws, or um, Sam Does
Sam does
Art,
art.
yeah,
Yeah, I
Sakimi
love his
Chung,
stuff.
Raiko Art. Those people
Mm,
are gods in my eyes. Kim Hyun Tae,
yeah.
Kim Jong Gi, those people are freaking amazing. And for me, objectively speaking, I know I need to work my ass off in order to get as good as them.
Mm,
So the goal is there. I know, I see it. I know it's it's painful in order to get up to where they are. That means I just got to practice and keep doing what I need to do. But then again, I have to. like I said, the distraction of gaining capital is kind of pulling me away from, you
Mm,
know, honing my art, right? So it's kind of
mm-hmm.
it's a weird thing. So, like I said on my streams, you always have to kind of make time in order to get things done. You can't just think that it'll happen. You actually have to put a lot of effort in order to make things happen. And for example, like, the tarot cards that I'm doing, I'm any time of the day that I have free, I spend all my free time. Well, that's not true. I play a lot of Overwatch too on my free time, which I need to do a little bit less of that. I need to, you know, concentrate on developing my skills as an artist, because that in itself is more important than, playing Overwatch and trying to become like a platinum level, which it won't get. It's the
All that
matchmaking system
getting there.
is still the matchmaking system is still fucked up. I was gold 5, now I'm silver 5 again. It's bullshit. But anyways, and not to talk about Overwatch. But yeah, man, I know. Thank you so much for showing this to us. I really appreciate that. Especially these examples. What is the reality? It's not just, flowers and follow your dreams and, your follow your passion and everything's gonna be okay. That's a lot of bullshit. Follow your passions, obviously, but don't count on it to make money for you. You got to be very, very realistic, because like you said, there are jobs out there that people hate, but they will do it because there's a need, right? And then so and just because you love doing something doesn't mean that there's a need for it, and doesn't mean that people will support you and, building up your yoga studio or whatever. So the end of the day, you just got to be smart with your time, your money, and as well as your energy. Yeah.
Yeah, and be open to things that you don't know exist yet, because that's the thing. Like when you're young and you're growing up, like your exposure to what is out there and what I mean, I'm sure when you were you know, even once you knew that you wanted to be an artist, you probably didn't know that there was going to be this, that it would be hugely valuable to learn black light print painting. That wasn't something that came onto your radar until you got into a place where somebody said like, "Hey, this is a thing that we need." Like, "Oh wow, I didn't even know that was a thing."
Hmm. Hmm.
I know, that's, and so like that's another thing about the passion thing. Is like it's totally fine to like have a passion and definitely bring it with you, because the more motivated and passionate you are, the easier it's never easy, but it's easier
Right.
to push through this, to slog through the mud and the pain and the bullshit. Um, but if you limit yourself just to like whatever your pre-existing passion is, you're not even gonna know about, you're not gonna expose yourself to these other things that may very well, that you didn't know exist, that may very well be these things that you are like, oh, actually, this is pretty cool, and I'm good at it,
Mhm.
and it's valuable, and I never would have even thought about this. Like, you know, um, growing up, like it's really easy to pick the like, oh, I'm gonna grow up and be an astronaut, or a
Yeah.
doctor or a lawyer. But most kids don't know that there's, like I don't know, with some kind of like super random job, like you know, speaker in like Rockwork speaker installation armature designer.
Yeah.
Like nobody know it, like that's a real job. Like there are people who do that professionally,
Right.
and the ones who are really good at it get paid really well. Um, but I bet you there's, I can count on one hand the number of people for whom that is their pre-existing passion, that's the dream job.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
probably a whole lot of other people who just kind of stumble along their way into a profession and find themselves in a situation surrounded by people who need help doing just that. We've got Rockwork. There needs to be a speaker in there. We need an armature that can attach the speaker to the main frame of the building. Can somebody do that? That's when that person gets to raise their hand and be like, yeah, I'll try to do
Mm-hmm.
that. Like,
Hmm.
great,
Hmm.
do it. And then they do it, and then they get better at it, and then eventually they become the Rockwork
The guy.
speaker armature guy.
Yeah. Yep. God bless that guy, because I'm
I
sure
know, right?
I'm sure he regrets raising his hands, because he's gonna be he's probably gonna have to travel the world just to do that, and it might be great for him, but after a while, I don't know, because yeah, I was that Rockwork blacklight printing guy, and I'm just like, oh
There you
god.
go.
It's followed me even to Japan. Oh dear Lord. But again, I'm very grateful for all the opportunities. Not complaining. It's just it's kind of funny how things work out. Just because you did it once and you did it well, and then all of a sudden it's just like you're known
You're
for
the
that guy.
guy.
You're the
Yeah,
guy to do it. It's
exactly.
like it's like, oh dear Lord, I just did it because no one else was doing it. That's why that's
Hmm.
why I had to do it. But since no one else is doing it, I got to do it again. So it's just like,
Yeah,
uh,
but you're so
yeah.
good at it.
Oh.
Yeah, one other thing I was gonna say that you mentioned like the social aspect, like yeah, that's actually really good. And I wonder if I need to like find a way to add that into this chart, or if maybe it's like a piece of the career capital, because it definitely is a skill and it's an important one that allows you to like, you know, lubricate the dynamics of working with other human beings, which is
Mhm,
always
mhm.
challenging. But
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
do anything worth doing, you're probably going to have a big team of people doing it. And yeah, I think that so like I would say never try to be an asshole. Always try to be a person that other people gravitate towards and like and feel inspired by and want to work with. Um, but just to highlight the power of the so good they can't ignore you component of the career capital, there are people out there who are so good at that that they don't have to be nice to other people. They can be an
Yeah,
asshole and still get paid a shit ton of money. You think about like, some surgeon, some brain surgeon who's just like
right.
an at
Doctor
like
Strange.
Stephen Strange. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
gets to be a total dick because he's the only guy in the world who's that good at, his job. Um, but he pays quite the price for that when that skill
Yeah,
goes away.
yeah,
Um, you can also look at somebody like Steve Jobs, who is notorious for being an absolute a-hole to people. But I mean, he was an absolute visionary. The things that like his ability to see where technology needed to go before anybody was even asking for it or aware of it, and his ability to drive a tech team to deliver products that literally changed the world. That's a very rare and valuable skill.
yeah.
So you don't have to be nice
Right.
to people. That doesn't mean
You
you
shouldn't be.
shouldn't be nice to
Yeah,
people. You
yeah,
absolutely should.
yeah,
Um, but yeah. So, but yes, I'm so glad you brought that up because yes, that is a really important factor. That building that network is definitely part of this equation that can kind of help you keep churning that cycle, and staying staying on the treadmill, I
yeah,
guess,
yeah, yeah,
until
yeah.
until you've built up that piggy bank enough that you can just go sit by the pool with the Mai Tai for the rest of your days.
God, that's the dream, man. That's the dream, Michael.
One of these days, Chris,
One of these
we're gonna get
days,
there.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I'm not young, but I'm not old yet. So it's like I know I need to. I need to use my time wisely, and I need to have faith in myself. I just gotta. One thing I know to do is that I just need to keep doing what I'm doing and persevere and not give up.
Yep.
Because to be honest, that's all I have left. It's like it's my obviously I could always go back to the workforce. Is something
Mm,
that I've shared with you, right? It's like, but that's not something I want to do. I don't want to give up my 9 to 5. It's like having to work Monday through Friday, sometimes even Saturday from 9 to 5, and
mhm.
it's to me that's not real freedom. And it's kind of funny too. It's like now I'm working for myself. Now I'm working 24/7. It's like, oh shit, you know.
That's not freedom either. Wait a minute. I got sold a bill of goods here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I know I'm building my own empire. It's like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
working for someone else. I'm working for myself. Whether I succeed or fail, it's all on me, right? Uh, and I can't blame. Like before, I could blame the other companies. Like, oh, they didn't know what they did not, promote me, and I'm my there is no control. I have no control of my career, and it that's like a feeling of hopelessness and just frustration because spending all that
Totally.
time and energy for that. that one company is just like, oh my God, But now I'm doing it myself. I definitely know it's the harder path because,
Mm,
it's not as stable. You don't get the regular paychecks like I did back in the past. But I'm glad I was able to open my eyes. I'm glad I'm able to take the road where what's that poem? The road less traveled. Uh,
mhm.
it's scarier, but I think it's definitely necessary in order to create the empire that I want to build. And whether it succeeds or fails, as long as I could say, I tried and I try my best. It's not like I'm dicking around every single day. It's not like I'm going,
Yeah.
to the casinos and gambling my money away, which I very much want to do. I love playing poker. But I know where my priorities are. It's, spend
Mm,
it's not just money, but it's like spending time because I know you could always make more money. Hell, if I had the balls, I would put like $10,000 on red, and then yay, another $10,000. You could always make more money, but you cannot get time back. So time is very, very is the most important thing in life. Other than air and water. I think time is probably the most one of the most important things that you can never ever get back.
yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, no. Again, Michael, thank you so much for sharing this book.
Sure.
It's freaking awesome, and I learned a lot. I kind of want to read again, but I know I say that now, but I'm probably not going to do it. So your analysis as well as your chart it has educated me and edified me, and hopefully you guys are watching. That Michael, if you can put that chart back up, and I
Oh,
will
sure.
enlarge it again for our viewers. I'll let them take a look and just analyze and see exactly what you talked about today. And yeah, so thank you so much, Michael. I really really appreciate the analysis that you gave to us. The whole financial capital as well as career capital, and I loved how you put it in gold and XP because that believe it or not, that actually really helps. Uh, you know, as a gamer,
Helps
people
me
who,
too.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what the hell is this thing? Like, okay, yeah, let's put it in gamer speak because now I'm gonna
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
understand it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because if you if you keep chilling, it's gonna cost you time and money. So it's gonna cost you your gold. Yeah.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
luckily the personal creative pursuits, hopefully that makes gold. That's what I'm striving for.
Well, I think like in your case, what you're doing, I wouldn't categorize it up here. I
Oh
would
no.
put it down here. Yeah, because like
Huh.
I mean, at this doesn't necessarily mean employment, I don't think,
Mm. Mm.
because
Mm. Mm.
you're, I guess maybe I could add like, you know, indie, like yeah, and well, sure,
Uh.
whatever.
Right.
Like if you want to go it alone, start your own business, that could also be down here, where you're trying to get gold. But again, the amount of gold will depend on the career capital, like what your level is. If you're, starting the yoga studio and you only have like 2 months of experience and a certificate, that gold income is probably going to be pretty low.
Right.
Maybe not enough to, you know, feed this beast that, requires money for you to sustain yourself. But if
Right.
that career capital is really high, and in your case, Chris, I think that's what you're doing. Is like you're in this feedback loop right here.
Yeah.
Each one of these like Kickstarter projects you do, that is right here. That's directly feeding your XP and making you better at what you're doing. Because like, man, like if I had done a Kickstarter, um, I have no experience with that, so mine will look nowhere near as good as the Kickstarter like home pages that you've been able to create. So I think this is where you are. Up here is I would consider this to be something where you're like, um, I don't know. I really like doing these. I don't know, coloring books or something, or like,
Uh-huh.
I, and I like coloring in the coloring books, not making them. But this is just like I like to really get in there and put some nice gouache paint in a coloring book, and it's just a fun thing that I like to do.
Mm.
Maybe somebody would on Etsy would be like, "Oh yeah, cool. A Chris Lee gouache coloring book page.
Yeah.
Like, I'll
Yeah.
buy that."
Yeah.
But you're not doing that to like make money. You're doing that because you think it's cool.
Ah, ah,
You
ah.
know, it's nourishing you. It's this is a luxury
Right, right,
activity
right.
that you're
Yeah, yeah,
doing,
yeah, yeah.
whereas what you're doing, like, and I think it fits in this category specifically because if this was big enough, you wouldn't do this. Like you would go into the chill mode, right? Like you would
Oh, hell
go
yeah.
on a vacation, and so yeah. So I don't think what you're doing is this because this is like the pleasure zone over here. These are things you're doing because they feel good, because it's fun.
Mhm, mhm,
This is the
mhm.
stuff that you're doing because it's part of this engine that you need to run in order to stay
Yeah.
alive.
Right, right, right. Oh, Totoro's here. He says, "Oh man, look at that diagram."
Hey, yeah. Actually gave Totoro a version one of this diagram where I was like, it was still trying to wrap it around my brain like what that was going to look like, and it nowhere near as sexy as this one. In fact, I might be able to show you what the original one looked like. Yeah, here I'll drop it in here so you can see. Um, Here was the first draft,
Oh, oh, nice.
where it was kind of like a flow chart where you're like, okay, if I got financial capital and then I could either chill, I could develop my skills. If I'm chilling and I still have money, like, okay, cool. I can just go back into financial capital and just keep doing what I'm doing. If I'm out of money, oh, uh-oh, that's not good. But
Yeah.
if I've got my financial capital and I choose instead of chilling to develop my skills, if I'm out of money, well, I can use those skills to go back into the workforce, develop my career capital. But if I'm developing those skills and I still have money, well, cool. I just go right back here and I can just kind of keep feeding back this loop.
Right,
Uh,
right.
and then with career capital, you get more control, you get more money goes into financial capital. And then these creative projects, this is that sort of like the luxury creative pursuit that I was talking about, where like
Mhm, mhm,
you're doing
mhm,
this not because you're looking for a guaranteed financial gain. This
mhm.
is just something that's important to you or fun to you.
Right, 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 right,
Whereas,
right.
this stuff over here is because like I'm doing a thing that I'm good at that people will pay me for, but maybe is not, my ultimate dream.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, so that was uh version one. I did a couple more
Cool.
like sketches to try to figure out what it would look like and then ended up with something like this.
No, this is beautiful. I, I, I like that you did this in Keynote. I know you wanted to do this in Rebel, but uh, th this is your home. This is your
Yeah,
home.
exactly. This is
Not,
my yeah, I this is my marketing, not my yoga studio.
not to put you in a what is it, a birdcage or whatever they
Mm-hmm.
say, uh but you are excellent at Keynote, Michael.
Thank you,
Totoro
man.
says, sorry I'm late, I finally got finished with those couple of things I was working on. Ah, no problem, man. I'm just happy to
Yeah,
have you
no
here, Totoro.
problem. Yeah, I
I
love it.
heard I
Welcome
heard
in.
you and I heard you and Michael had a good time at arcade playing games. That is awesome, man. um
Yep.
yeah, that's cool.
It was crowded too. Like there were a lot of people in there enjoying games.
What games did you guys play?
Uh, Actually, we got to play a two-player top-down rail shooter game. That was
Oh,
very
cool.
much in the spirit of yeah, of
Oh,
the
that's
same kind
awesome.
of rail shooters that inspired us. It's like the one where you're playing the like the World War II kind of planes, and they're flying around. You're shooting millions of things on the screen.
Oh, that's cool.
It was hard.
Oh.
We died a lot, but it was pretty good. I got on the leaderboard, so I got to put my initials in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Totoro says we did. You are coming next time, Chris Lee. Oh,
See?
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was talking about, Totoro. I was telling Chris, like, oh man, we were talking about you. Like, it would have been great if you were here. Like, next time we need to find a way to get all three of us together to hang out.
Yeah,
It'd
that's
be
cool.
good times.
That's cool. Totoro says, "Oh, it's the 19XX." Yeah, I know the game. That
Mm-hmm.
game is really, really
Oh,
cool.
there you go.
That was one. That
That's
was
cool.
the name of that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's always fun. That's always fun. Okay, well, I'm looking at the gallery and it seems like there is no new art for this week, and that's totally okay. Which is totally fine. But if you guys are watching, feel free to, post your artwork, and then next week we will take a look at it. And I think next week I can share with you guys all my tarot cards that I've been doing.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think by tonight I'm going to finalize it, and if I don't see any huge errors, I will definitely show it to you guys next week. Yeah, I guess that's something that I could do on my end, Michael, is to show the whole
Yeah.
process of how I, combine AI versus my skill with my skill, and then came out to the final product. Uh, Again, it was easy, but it was not easy. It was fun, but it was not fun. It was fast, but it was not fast. And I'll explain to you guys what all that means, because what I
Hmm.
thought was, oh yeah, AI is awesome. It's gonna take over the world, and I don't have to draw anymore. That's complete bullshit. Because oh god, it was a pain in the ass just to get the image to where I wanted.
Hmm.
And I'll break everything down. I'll show you exactly what I had to do. So yeah, if Michael, if you're okay with it, we'll just do that
Oh
for
yeah,
next Sunday,
please.
and I'll
Sure.
share exactly what the whole process of combining AI and my skill is. So yeah, it was an interesting effort and process, and I don't know if I want to do it again, or if I do, then that means you know the Kickstarter went really well, and then therefore I'm gonna do it again. Because yeah, using Midjourney, it takes subscription fee, and obviously you guys
Mm.
know I'm a cheap motherfucker, and I don't like spending money on subscriptions. But this was a kind of like a trial run and see if it actually worked, and it works. I'm very proud of myself saying, Michael, I'm gonna try this, and I did, and then so it's just like, oh, okay, it works. And I guess now time to move on to the next thing that will hopefully build my empire. Uh, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But until then, I'll keep it to myself, and I'll share it with you guys at the appropriate time. Appropriate time. All right, guys. It's about that time. If you guys are interested in following me, here is my social link as well as Michael's. You could find us both at the linktree.com, or not .com. It's just Linktree and followed by our names. And you can find me streaming every Tuesday and Fridays. Tuesday and Friday, yeah, Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. PST. You can find me here at twitch.tv/Lead Design Studio, as well as Michael. You can find him here, exactly here at the Creative Tavern. And again, you guys, we will be meeting on Sunday. We will not be meeting on Wednesdays anymore. So that Michael and I can get together and just figure out what we want to do, and then we'll update you and we'll change it accordingly. Yeah. Michael, do you have anything you want to add before we sign off?
Nope, I don't think so. That very well said. You summarized it perfectly, and you did it more concisely than I would, because I'm always too wordy. So good job, Chris.
No, no, all good, all good. And Lido says, "Have a good night, guys." Thank you so much, Lido.
Thanks,
King Kaz
Lados.
says, "I hope y'all try Gundam
King.
Evolution." Yeah, yeah, I still gotta try that. Currently, I'm trying to finish up all the tarot cards. That's part of the reasons why I didn't stream on Tuesday and Fridays. Partly because I'm sick, and
Mm,
partly because I wanted to very much hurry up and get these out the door. But yes, King Cast, I definitely need to try Gundam Evolution. I did try Genshin Impact.
oh.
I installed it and I played it
Mm-hmm.
for like 20 minutes. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like I'm an old person now, because I'm just like, oh, I gotta switch characters. Oh, I gotta change weapons. Oh, I gotta upgrade now. Oh, something's wrong
Felt
with my
like a
head
job.
now. It felt like very stressful. It felt like I was, like,
Hmm.
oh god, I gotta go and obtain XP.
Mm,
It felt strenuous to me
mm-hmm.
versus playing Overwatch. You get in there, you shoot a couple people, you win, you get out. And it's weird. My brain is wholly wired differently now. But I will say, oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful game for what it is. All the characters, all the environment is beautifully designed. All the voice acting, beautifully designed, very amazing. And I will go back to it, and I will continue to play it. It's just the fact that, oh, you got to get a couple of things in order to upgrade, and you got to go here to explore. I'm just like, oh geez, I'm feeling a lot of pressure. I'm feeling really really stressed. I know this is a game, but it's just like I feel like I'm actually working. It's like, oh come on,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, cause my
That's,
brain was just on Overwatch mode. It's like go in, shoot
mhm.
them, kill them, win, get XP, get out. So yeah, that was my experience with Genshin Impact.
Yeah, I think that is very on topic. That's the feeling of deliberate practice, doing a thing that you're not comfortable with, that you don't know how to do, which I think really prevents a lot of people, including me, from playing a lot of video games. Because unlike reading a book, if you know how to read, you can read any book. If you've watched a movie and you know how that goes, you can watch a movie.
Yeah,
But playing a video game, every new game, you have to learn from
learn.
scratch how to play the game. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that creates this big hurdle to like overcome.
that's true.
Um,
That's very true.
and if you don't, yeah, and like going from something that's like a first-person shooter, you've got first-person shooter skills that can translate. If you play Overwatch, it's a little bit easier to move into something like Halo or Call of Duty or whatever. Um, those games are a little different, but they're not. It's not like going from a first-person shooter to person RPG. Like
Yeah,
that's a big jump. And if you've never done that before, yeah, it's your brain is constantly trying, like, its function is to find the path of least resistance.
yep,
And as soon as
yep,
you're doing something that's difficult, it's like, hey, no, don't
yeah,
do that. I'm gonna make you feel bad. Like, let's go over here and chill and hang out and do the thing that is really easy.
yeah,
Um, and and you gotta fight it, man, because in the past, like historically, that would have been really great. When calories were really scarce, and all you really needed to do is find a delicious piece of food to eat and not get eaten by something else.
yep,
Path of least resistance was fantastic. We don't live in that time anymore.
yep,
You got to fight that thing
yep,
and get uncomfortable sometimes.
yeah. Although I will say it's like God, life is much easier back. I mean, it's not easier back then, but it's a lot simpler back then.
Simpler.
Don't die and just eat. Don't die and
Yeah.
eat and stay warm and
Yeah. Don't
procreate.
get eaten. Eat. Yeah. And procreate.
Yeah, and then as you go down to history, it's like you got to learn how to protect yourself, protect your tribe, and then
Hmm.
you got to figure out how to do agriculture, and then it's like Age of Empires, if you will.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. That was an awesome game. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We will see you guys next Sunday. Make sure you guys check out all our socials, and if you guys have any artwork or anything creative, please post it in our Discord. We'll take a look at it on Sunday. Until then, I am Chris, and that's Michael, and we will see you guys very very soon. All right, talk to you later. Bye guys.